The views and opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of Natural Bridges Media or KSQD's staff, volunteers, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Talk of the Bay. I am your host, Len B.A., and I have as my guest today Michael Tree. Michael Tree is the CEO and General Manager of the Santa Cruz Metropolitan Transit District, more commonly known as Metro. He came to Santa Cruz Metro in April of 2022 after more than 27 years of experience in public transportation and city management, most recently as Executive Director of the Livermore-Amador Valley Transit Authority in Livermore, California. While Executive Director of LAVTA, Tree also served as the Executive Director for the Tri-Valley San Joaquin Valley Regional Rail Authority, a new rail authority created by the state of California to plan and deliver a 42-mile, 7-station commuter rail project. While with the Livermore-Amador Valley Transit Authority, Michael Tree was named Transit Manager of the Year by both the California Association for Coordinated Transportation and the California Transit Association, and in 2020, LAVTA was named the North American Transit Agency of the Year in its category by the American Public Transportation Association. Michael Tree, welcome to Talk of the Bay.
Hey, thanks, Len. Appreciate it.
Good to have you here. It's been less than a year since you took over the chief executive role at Santa Cruz Metro, and Metro had been making its way through some difficult challenges, particularly with the pandemic. There was a drop in ridership, and all kinds of issues came up for protection of people on the buses, for protection of drivers. Budgets have been extremely tight, and the district's been short on drivers. Now that you've had a few months under your belt, what are your primary goals for your work with the district?
Yeah, hey, it's been great to be here. I've really enjoyed working for Metro thus far. It's got a fantastic board of directors. It's got great employees. We've got about 280 employees. And you're right. When I arrived, we were just basically on the tail end, kind of in the recovery from COVID. So lots of challenges in regard to just sanitation and keeping things clean and safe on the bus system, and of course the ridership had suffered greatly. So, as I came on board, we met with the board in a workshop and invited the public, and we talked about the goals moving forward. I think it's it's interesting times coming out of the pandemic. The board really set their sights on three goals. Obviously, ridership, getting the ridership not only back to pre-pandemic levels, but beyond, and reaching the 7 million mark, hopefully by 2027. That's the goal. And would love to chat more about that this afternoon. But the other two goals that have been high priority for the board is really zero-emission buses. I think the board has a real desire to not buy any more tailpipes when it comes to these fixed route buses that we operate on 25 routes throughout the county. And then the third goal is affordable housing. I think everybody recognizes it's a tough go trying to find housing that one can afford on the wages you're earning here in Santa Cruz County. And so the board set their sight on creating at least or developing 175 affordable housing units on Metro property within the decade. So that's an interesting goal for a transit agency.
Yeah.
But it's been fun to work on that, and we've made some progress.
Great. Where do we stand with ridership at this point?
So we're right at about 3.5 million, coming up on 4 million rides a year in the recovery. And pre-COVID, it was right around 5.5 million. Okay. About 22 years ago, when funding was a little more robust in the state for public transit, the agency actually was carrying 7 million rides a year. And so we're hoping to return to that 7 million mark, within the next 5 years.
Okay, great. That would be what's the potential? I mean, do you foresee that a geographic area like we're in, which is maybe a little more complex than, for example, the Livermore Valley, in terms of its geographic layout and where people live, do you think there is potential for a significant increase above that 7 million at some point in the future?
I do. The public support is strong for Metro. Everywhere I've gone, it's proven to be just a really important, partner in the community, and is well received by folks. It's interesting if you talk to folks about what they most want to see in Metro, what's most important to them. In fact, we did a survey before our public workshop of what do the residents want to see in Metro moving forward. There's 3 big items. It's speed. They want to see the buses moving through intersections and moving along with traffic. They want to see frequency, how often the bus comes to the bus stop, because that allows the bus system to be easy to use, and then they want a reliable bus system. So we've got some planning efforts going on. Reimagine Metro, you can find out about that on the website, even take a survey right now. But that is the goal of the board, is really to make a better Metro, a faster, more frequent, and more reliable Metro coming out of that planning process.
Yeah, and that's kind of transit planning 101 is frequency, speed, and reliability. I guess you could say, in a sense, reliability maybe is sort of an umbrella that when you say you're going to have so many buses per hour, you really do. But also there's that sense of, is it safe? Can you take the bus and reliably expect to have no difficulties in that process and no challenges from, in the way of safety. So since we have some pretty, rural areas in terms of population density, San Lorenzo Valley, the North Coast, Corralitos, the whole area between Aptos and Watsonville really is rural.
Yep.
And yet there's routes trying to serve almost every portion of that area. What are those challenges? And especially since the major thoroughfares tend to be really congested at certain times during commute hours, how does that shape your decisions on where and when to provide transit service?
Those are great questions. And, I think that's what policymakers really wrestle with, right? If you imagined a knob on a stereo system or what have you, you could turn the knob either way. And for policymakers, if you'd like to see a lot of ridership with your limited budget, you turn the knob towards frequency. So you run your buses on key corridors with higher frequency. And then if you're looking for more of coverage, you can turn the knob the other way, and the buses go out to different places within the county, but obviously with the same budget, it would be less frequently. And so that's a lower ridership, but a better coverage. And so I think policymakers really strive to try and find a balance there. If you were to ask me kind of what is the balance in Metro right now, I'd probably tell you it's like 65% performance or frequency on key corridors, and probably 35 or 40% with coverage. And so SLV, for example, that you mentioned, and Aptos and so on, those are good examples of routes that seek for coverage, seek to go out and provide a basic level of public transit for folks who are needing it. And then more into Santa Cruz, you see routes with higher frequency, and those are meant to really kind of allow you to get into the downtown area. For example, if you're commuting into the downtown area, avoid parking fees, have frequency so that if you need to, if you miss a bus, there's another bus coming in a few minutes, and those routes generate your higher ridership. And obviously, probably key to 60% of Metro ridership is the University of Santa Cruz. And so they provide a lot of ridership. In fact, we can't keep up with the ridership right now. We're short, as you had mentioned, on new operators. And so if you're not
yeah.
running as many buses, obviously we leave people behind, which is a real tragedy for staff, right? That's what we're there to do, is provide those rides. And when the buses are full and we're leaving folks behind, it's obviously something that we're really worried about.
Yeah, and is a lack of enough drivers a constraint in that in terms of how many how many buses you can run in an hour?
It is.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And right now we're about 20 drivers short. So
wow, that's a lot.
It is. I tell you, if there's folks out there who are underemployed perhaps or are transitioning with employment, we're a great place to check out in regard to maintenance, in regard to new operators. You don't even need experience as a new operator. We'll take you through training classes. We'll provide kind of A to Z for you as far as getting you up and getting you going in a great new career.
Great, yeah, and this is, the transit district is a special district. It's under state law. It's kind of a governmental entity, right?
Yep.
So, as I think almost everybody knows, who knows anybody who's worked in any kind of government office, it's a little different than the private sector, where almost universally jobs in any department of any government are going to provide basic benefits, which are often hard to come by in the private sector. So that's a step to consider for people looking in the job market. You mentioned that one of the goals that the board gave you was to get rid of fossil fuel fired, internal combustion engine type buses. And I know that you've recently acquired at least one electric bus. Where do those things stand, and how are you making that? Where's the money come from to buy these things? They're not cheap.
They are not cheap. Yeah, you hit it right on the head. It's interesting. When I came to Santa Cruz, I talked to a lot of folks about what's really important to them in Santa Cruz County. And, almost universally, they said, I'm here because of the beauty. I'm here because of the Monterey Bay and the wildlife. I'm here because of the Santa Cruz Mountains and the coastal redwoods. I mean, everybody loves the environment here in Santa Cruz County in the Monterey Bay. And so the board's really attuned to the fact that when you ride the bus, you're doing a big part in reducing emissions in the environment. And then further to getting that accomplished is the actual buses themselves. We run the natural gas buses. Those are with natural gas. It's considered renewable natural gas. So they're clean burning, efficient buses, but there are two types of zero emission buses with no tailpipe, and of course that's the goal of the board. So you can do a battery electric bus. It just runs purely on batteries. You plug it in and charge the batteries. And then the second available zero emission bus is what they call a hydrogen bus. It has a fuel cell, so you put hydrogen into the tank of the bus. The fuel cell converts it to electricity and then stores that electricity in a battery, which, just like a battery electric bus, then drives the bus. And so those buses are a little over $1 million a piece. So they are a challenge to come up with the funding, but the state and the federal government have lots of incentives and lots of discretionary or competitive programs. Right now, Santa Cruz Metro, we operate 5 battery electric buses. We have 5 additional battery electric buses on order. We'll take delivery of those buses in July. So we're excited at that point to have 10 buses out on the road. And then we actually have reserved an order for 12 hydrogen buses that will basically be formalizing in a few months. And if you've seen the media lately, thanks to the Regional Transportation Commission and their grant writers, we received a $30 million grant for our Bus on Shoulder project on Highway 1, and that also included funding for 4 additional hydrogen-powered buses, so we'll be ordering 16.
Wow. And what's the timeline for that addition?
So those hydrogen buses are taking about 16 months to manufacture. So a little ways out, but
Yeah.
it's fun. We have already put them in the queue, even though the formal agreements haven't been, drawn up. So they're in the queue. So we're hoping that we'll probably have them maybe 14 months out.
Yeah, I got to ride in a fuel cell bus way back in 2013 in Chicago, which probably at the time was one of the few on the road. I don't know, but it's interesting to see how these technologies are gradually getting integrated, and the production capacity to put them on wheels is getting built up. I know in Europe now they have some fuel cell powered trains, but it seems that if you've got catenary wires, those are those overhead electric lines for your train lines, that seems to win out over the fuel cells. But we don't have anything like that here, so
we don't. And a lot of people ask me, why would you be interested in a hydrogen powered bus? And I think there's a couple of reasons why hydrogen ultimately may be the zero emission technology of choice for heavy-duty vehicles like these transit buses. The first is that you can fuel a hydrogen bus in about 10 minutes, which is about the same amount of time it takes to fuel them with CNG. And so instead of hours of charging, you can fuel a hydrogen bus, as mentioned, in 10 minutes. The range of a hydrogen bus is just about the range of a CNG bus, so about 350 miles on just one fueling event of the hydrogen. And then the other is just the resilience of a hydrogen technology. For example, if all the power goes out with battery electric buses, it would be very difficult to have a generator that could basically charge all those buses, but you could easily have a generator getting up and getting going a hydrogen fueling station to keep the buses on the road.
Right, because it's just a compressed gas.
That's
in
right.
that case.
Yep.
Yeah, and I noticed there are companies out there that are creating on-site hydrogen production, and some of them are using solar to do that. That's a practical thing to do as the technology for electrolysis has improved, and so that's something that might be an interesting, adjunct thing that the district could acquire in the future as its own fueling station that's locally producing the hydrogen from water. So
yeah, Len, with the Valley Link rail project, you mentioned that I was working on the Valley Link project.
Right.
The city of Tracy in the Central Valley had provided that rail authority 200 acres to have a solar farm that would then provide the energy for a hydrogen station that would power the trains.
Wow.
And so about 70% of the energy needed for the train sets on that would be produced by the solar farm. So you hit it right on the head. There's lots of transit agencies. We're one of them that are forming consortiums and partnerships in an effort to create green hydrogen so that you truly get more of a zero emission impact on the environment.
Yeah, because I think still today the majority of hydrogen in use in the U.S. is still basically chemically separated out of natural gas.
Yep.
So it's not exactly carbon free, but it's closer. If you're just tuning in, my guest is Michael Tree. He is the CEO of Santa Cruz Metro. You mentioned that there's a lot of environmental goals that the district has set. And one of the programs you have right now is One Ride at a Time. I wonder if you could describe that program.
Oh, I'd be honored to. So I'm really excited about this program. I haven't seen anything like it in my career. And so One Ride at a Time basically has two elements. And the first element is that the Regional Transportation Commission has partnered with Metro. And for every 25 rides that you take on Metro, the Regional Transportation Commission will provide $10 towards your choice of either the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary Foundation or the Bay of Life project. And so you're contributing money as you ride the bus to these two great organizations that basically have in their sights and their vision, right, improving the environment in the Monterey Bay, whether it's humpback whales and detanglement, whether it's the kelp beds, whether it's the sea otters, or whether it's the Santa Cruz Mountains. These two organizations work on those. And so that's the first element of one ride at a time, where literally every ride that you make makes a contribution to environmental efforts. The second element is really progressive of the Metro board. They approved a sustainability policy. Metro has lots of vendors within its $60 million a year budget. And these vendors now have the opportunity to, as they're competing for projects with Metro, to set aside 5% of the contract value that can then be contributed to the Sanctuary Foundation or the Bay of Life project.
All right.
So, yeah, between these two elements, I mean, Metro's doing a lot as a community partner for the environment. We've got a goal that within the next 3 to 5 years, would like to see both of those elements contribute over $1 million to the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and the Bay of Life.
That's great. And I understand Franz Lanting, of course, is involved or initiated the Bay of Life project, and an award-winning photographer. And you now have some of his images are going to be going on some of the buses. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know if you've had a chance to see them, but they are amazing. My favorite is a whale tail. It's just you can see the vertebrae in the tail, or the bone structure in the tail, and the water cascading off the tail. And these are high-definition resolutions on the 40-foot bus, and we take the entire length of the bus to feature the wildlife and some of the nature. We've got a mountain lion. We've got upcoming pod of whales coming up to feed, and you can see, the fish, spraying in all different directions as the pod of humpbacks comes up to feed. And my favorite image, which is on a future bus wrap, is of an elephant seal that Franz took a picture of, that has amazing personality in this picture of this elephant seal. So over the next couple of years, we're going to introduce 30 pictures or art murals, if you will, on these buses, 2 every other month. So if you averaged it out, it'd be 1 a month. But we're excited for that project because it highlights the photography, it highlights the wildlife, and gives people a reason to go check out what we're up to. And I would say, if you don't ride Metro, that's historically been something that just hasn't been part of your lifestyle. Knowing now that we're contributing to the environment with the One Ride at a Time project, I'd like to make an invitation to everybody listening to maybe just take a goal of having a Friday where you take the bus to work on Friday, and through the Regional Transportation Commission and the phone app that's associated with One Ride at a Time. You can learn more about that on our website. You can keep track of your rides. You can track your emission savings on the environment, but you can also keep track of these contributions that are being made on behalf of your rides to these great organizations.
Yeah, and it beautifies the buses too, which is, I've noticed other transit districts around the country have done, different sorts of strategies where, different routes have different colors or different names or both, or, things like that to kind of create this sense of like fun and some inducement to like participate and be part of using the bus system. And it seems like these photographs, he's an amazing photographer. And to get those photographs onto the buses is a really nice touch that could lead to, even more. So,
we have a kickoff for that event. It's been a soft kickoff thus far, but on Wednesday, March 29th, so coming right up at the end of the month from 2 to 4 p.m., if you go to the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary Exploration Center, we're going to have just a really great formal kickoff. We'll have 4 to 6, I think we'll have 6 wraps done at that point where you can come check them out up close or come have some great hors d'oeuvres and get to meet some of the great partners that we have in that program.
Right, and that's right at the base of the wharf, the municipal wharf.
It is.
Off of Beach Street there.
If I'm not mistaken, 35 Pacific Avenue.
Oh, you know the address. Wow. That's great.
But I hope everyone could come and have fun with that program.
And I wanted to ask, when you have a lot of routes, you have 25 routes in place for the fixed route buses in the county. When you're doing route planning, obviously you've got to have some data to go by. You've got to make some educated guesses too for the things you don't have data for. But what occurred to me is so many of us now are walking around with these devices on our bodies that are tracking our location all the time. And is there any way for transit planners to obtain that kind of data to actually understand in a more detailed way what people's origins and destinations are as they move around?
That's an interesting question. And, one of the projects we have at Metro is upgrading and installing a new CAT AVL system and also an automated passenger counter system. And so, the real short version of what that does is it allows us to see people, it allows us to see in real time boardings and alightments when folks get off the bus, so the location and how many people. But even more importantly, it allows us to share data with app builders, and Transit app is probably one of the more well-known apps in the industry. And so we share that real-time data, and what really can take place, which is exciting, is that you get up in the morning, the app knows that you need to go to work. So the app basically tells you need to leave at a certain time based on the performance of the bus that morning. Right. And so it tells you how far to walk. It tells you what time the bus is going to get to the bus stop in real time. And it actually tells you if the bus is full or not, or if it's partly full, or if it's virtually empty. And so you can basically, if you don't want to ride in a full bus, you can just wait for the next one after. But it allows you to get some really great information on riding the bus. And interestingly enough, Transit app, when you use it, which is where we encourage people to go if they want to have an app with Metro, on the Transit app, you can not only rate your ride, but you can allow it to track your journeys. And then that data can have some availability for the transit agency as it does some route planning. So that technology is there. It's pretty exciting, and what it really offers is incredible convenience for folks as they use public transit.
Yeah, and you do have now an app that provides real-time information about when a bus will arrive at a given stop and all that. And I've used your I guess it's an online tool where I say, I'm coming from this spot and I want to get to that spot. And it tells me which route to get and when the next bus is. And all of that's something that there didn't used to be back in the day when I rode the bus more frequently than I do now. How important are those apps for, in terms of, increasing ridership and maintaining ridership?
I think they're really important. Frequency and speed and reliability are the most important. So if you had to choose between an app or a bus that was frequent and moved quickly and was reliable, you'd take the latter. But, an app allows you the peace of mind to know that, hey, if the bus isn't there when I thought it was going to be there, I can go onto the app and I can see right where it's at. And I can see the estimated arrival time, which I think is important for people, right? People, they not only need convenience, but they need an assurance that they've got some reliability built into this.
Yeah.
And so...
yeah, I've been there where I show up at the bus stop 1 minute before it's supposed to get there, and then 3 minutes later I haven't seen it. And I go, did I miss it?
Right.
And be able to go, oh, no, it's actually, there it is. It's coming,
Oh, man. So I tell you, by the end of the month, Metro is going to be daylighting some improved technology, and we're excited to introduce it to the public over the next few months.
Great. And I'm a bicyclist. I most of my journeys around town are by bicycle. And I own a car, so I don't have to take the bus, but I've used the bus occasionally. And I remember, because I was once, back when you were a child, I was a university student, and I used the bus all the time. And it's really changed. Now you get announcements of what the next stop is. You have an idea of how long it's going to take to get to the main next destination. Things that you used to you just wait and find out how it's going to turn out. Now it's much more predictive. And I think for, probably a lot of our listeners don't use the bus regularly and may not be aware that things have changed from, the bus they may remember from some years ago. But it is amazing how much it has changed. Today, it's March 1st. This marks the first day of the Youth Cruise Free program. And I wondered if you could talk about that program and what it does.
Yes. And, here's another program that helps us with ridership. It helps us reach that goal that we're striving for. But, I think in this day and age, Len, my goodness, why wouldn't you have a pass program for youth and for college-age students? If ever there was a segment of the population that would enjoy the bus system, that has high need for reliable and good public transportation because of fixed and limited budgets, this is the group, right? So I was excited to see that the board kicked off the pilot. And, it's really easy. If you are a student, if you're a youth all the way through 12th grade, if you've got a student ID from your school, that's your flash pass. You just basically get on the bus, show them your student ID, and grab yourself a great seat and enjoy the ride. So it's a pilot program. It's going to go for a full year, and
Right.
We're anxious to see, how youth react to having an easy, convenient way of getting around on the bus system. And our hope is that we find a long-term funding source for it. We think we've got some ideas of perhaps where that funding source could come from. But I'll tell you what, I love seeing the youth on the bus. I think they love it. I think it sets them up for a lot of success in the future in riding public transit, and it helps them get focused on the environment and on a lot of issues that benefit, our communities.
Yeah, and for a lot of youth, mobility is not something they have easy access to.
Right.
If their parents are working or, there's only so many vehicles in the household, they're pretty much limited to what they can do with under their own power unless they take the bus, which really extends the range and options. And this is an amazing county for that because you can take the bus to state parks, you can take the bus to beaches, you can take the bus to, if you're not in a downtown area, to a downtown area, or if you're in a downtown area and you want to get out of it, you can get, so it's amazing area to be in terms of the diversity of environments we have in the county. And the bus is really your ticket to get to them if you don't have any other option. It's perfect. So that's enormous.
And you know what I love about Metro is, I ride the bus in the morning, and I have about a 15-minute walk to my bus stop where I live, and then I've got a 15-minute walk, obviously, when I get off work and return on the bus. And you know what? My doctors have said, you've hit 50. It's time to start making sure you get your 10,000 steps in. And by golly, I get my 10,000 steps in thanks to Metro.
Right. Yeah, and this is something for anybody who's traveled outside the U.S., this is probably a familiar experience, but you have to take transit, or it's really the cheapest and most effective way to get around in many foreign cities.
Yeah.
And what you notice there is people walk.
Yeah.
And they walk a lot because, the subway stop may be, every 6 blocks, or, the bus may be 3 blocks over that way, or, whatever it is that you're having to depend on to get around. And so people, walk routinely. And there was I've forgotten his name, but he was a professor of planning at one of the CSU campuses in California who said our pattern of land use in the U.S. with urban sprawl is a public health disaster because it forces people to use automobiles to get around because it's just not, it doesn't really work to serve those communities comprehensively. With transit, they're not dense enough. And, that sedentary lifestyle takes a toll on all of us. So, walking to the bus is not only an opportunity to experience the outdoors for a few minutes, but it's good for you. So,
and I tell you, every bus has a bike rack on it, and you can actually put multiple bikes on the racks. And so that's another great way to metro around the county is take your bike and then enjoy mounting it on the bus. It's easy to do. And then you really improve your mobility and in your range. And, we're just having fun at Metro. The Metro employees are absolutely amazing. They're cordial. They're easy to work with, easy to ride the bus with because you can ask them questions. You shouldn't ever be afraid to say, hey, I'm not quite sure how to do this or how to do that, because they're just more than willing with a smile on their face to help you out. And, some of our guys have even been trying to figure out how to put racks on the buses so that folks, students at UC Santa Cruz, for example, can take their surfboards and pop them on the bus and then head on over to the beach. I mean, that's the kind of quality of folks we got working is we're just trying to figure out how you can even enjoy Metro even more with, with just living your life and enjoying that great public asset.
Yeah. And that's an interesting, I want to get back to that, but we're going to take a really short break, and we'll be right back with Michael Tree of Santa Cruz Metropolitan Transit District after this. Don't go away. If you're just joining us, my guest is Michael Tree. He is the CEO and General Manager of Santa Cruz Metro. Michael, you were just talking about the bike racks on the buses, and as I remember, the bike racks currently on the buses will hold 3 bikes. Is that right? That's right. Are you finding that that's an adequate number of racks for the demand?
I think in general, yes. I've seen a few occasions where we've got 3 bikes on those racks, but I'll tell you, I wouldn't say it's a little secret, but when the bus isn't too full and there are 3 bikes on the rack, if you ask the driver if conditions are safe, they'll allow you to bring the bike onto the bus. And so, we always try to accommodate and minimize disruption to folks getting around, but I rarely see all 3 of the racks full with bikes. So I see a lot of 1s and 2s, but you should feel pretty confident that if you're riding your bike and you want to jump on Metro, you're going to have a slot.
Great. An outside consultant remarked a few years ago that for the size of community we have, our transit system has less capacity than average. Obviously, this has impacts in terms of the areas served, how frequent the service can be. Given the funding limitations that inevitably you face, how do you prioritize and what's the path forward?
So, prioritizing is it's public policy. And I think the board, as they think about frequency and versus coverage, they like to, or they endeavor to reach out and to hear from the public about what's important for them. And so, for example, in Reimagine Metro, which is Metro's current planning efforts, there's 12 focus groups that are forming, and there's several public meetings that will happen over the 15-month planning process. For example, that first public meeting, it's actually an online or a virtual public meeting. It's on March 14th. You can find out more information about this upcoming on Metro's website, scmtd.com. But I think the board listens. I think they look and they talk with the community about the values that the community has and what they'd like to see in the bus system. For example, we did a really good survey, statistically valid survey of residents in Santa Cruz County, and we gave them some trade-off or some questions that would require them to exercise some trade-off. And we found that 70% of the people valued speed and frequency over coverage, for example, when asked. And so, I would assume that depends on a lot on where you live. And of course, the majority of residents live in more of your metro area of Santa Cruz County, Watsonville, and Santa Cruz itself. But I think that's what the board does. They listen closely to the public. They introspectively and with the public look at the values, look at what they'd like to accomplish from a transportation perspective in the county moving forward. There's been some discussion about a passenger rail project perhaps in the future in Santa Cruz County. How would that look? How would that help traffic and help folks getting around the county? And they do the same with the bus system. What is the ultimate goal for the bus system in the county? Well, it's to get people, it's to move people and connect people, but it's also to help with traffic and be a traffic, helpmate in reducing traffic.
And you mentioned RTC has gotten some funding to, basically add auxiliary lanes to a portion of Highway 1. And as part of that, they would also add some pass-through lanes. The auxiliary lanes don't continue at the exits for vehicles,
yep.
But they would add some pass-through lanes, essentially a lane on the shoulder, for buses to continue on the highway. There are other jurisdictions that have bus on shoulder where it's exclusively for buses. This would be mostly shared, except that they don't have to get off at the exits. They can keep going. And that, of course, at this point would only serve a portion of the highway. But how would that impact bus service between North and South County here?
You did an excellent job, number one, of explaining what that project is. I think there's been a lot of questions about what, in fact, is that bus on shoulder project, and that's it, using the auxiliary lanes. And then when the bus is traveling under the overpasses, it has its own bus on shoulder lane. I think this project's a great starter project for Metro on Highway 1. It affords some time savings to the customer, probably 5 to 10 minutes over the current travel time of a bus on Highway 1 during peak times. But more than that, I think it introduces the concept of a bus on shoulder on Highway 1, and I think that there are future plans, certainly at Metro, to try and expand upon that into a pure bus on shoulder project all the way through the corridor, which would have some tremendous time savings for folks.
Yeah, I mean that's always a difficulty with transit. If you're sharing the road with cars and there's congestion, then the buses have no advantage, and that's we've seen that over and over, and why a lot of transit systems depend on, dedicated guideways for whatever transit vehicle is there.
Yep.
Even it started outside the U.S., but there are a number of cities now that have, what do they call it? Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT, mm-hmm. which is a dedicated lane, essentially, for buses only, so that they're not caught in the traffic. So this would be kind of, you might say, at least a small toe in the door towards that kind of infrastructure for bus service here.
It is. It's really got our relationship with Caltrans off on a good start, and with the CHP. And I think those are two stakeholders for sure in a future bus on shoulder project that goes the entire length.
Great. So, thinking about long-term things, last June, voters defeated Measure D, which would have halted planning for rail transit on the county's rail corridor and would have prescribed removal of the tracks. now that planning for rail transit is moving forward again, there's been discussion about how there's a real need to integrate any future rail transit with other transit in order to feed riders to and from the rail corridor. So that you're not just stuck with, oh, you can go anywhere along the rail corridor, but how do you get from there to the other places you need to go? You have to link those rail stops with other destinations. If we get to a point where we actually do have transit on the rail corridor, how would that affect bus routing?
So, I think if there were rail, for example, in that corridor, that corridor would then have lots of development, I think, that would occur around the stations, right?
Right.
And so from a ridership perspective on the rail, lots of the ridership would come from right around the stations as development occurs, infill and transit-oriented development type projects. And I would envision that should rail be in that corridor, the Metro bus system would play a key role in serving those rail stations, bringing folks in that first last mile dilemma that happens around good quality public transit is how do you get to that corridor that has that great public transit? And so I would envision that Metro would play a significant role in bringing folks into the stations.
And if the rail is implemented, is there a chance that Metro would operate the rail vehicles?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely. We love public transit. We've, I think from a capacity standpoint, we do have some rail experience in-house. Obviously I was a CEO with a rail authority that was, building a rail project. We would have to, improve upon that capacity to operate a rail system. But I think the Metro board, should there be a rail system there, if that's the direction the public would like to go, absolutely. I would hope that they would look to Metro.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it certainly simplifies the planning process in terms of when you serve and where you serve and all that. The district also operates Metro Paracruz, which serves mobility impaired people around the county. How big an operation is that, and is its funding all come from the same bucket, or how is it funded?
Yeah, so what an important program. The real simplified version of how it works is within three quarters of a mile around the routes that are out there that are operating during the day and in the evening. If you can't access the fixed route buses, you can call and we'll send a door-to-door vehicle out to get you. So senior disabled that can't access the fixed route bus system then have an opportunity for public transit. It's funded basically from the same pot, and it becomes one of the challenges of Metro moving forward because there is an ever-growing need for door-to-door service for senior and disabled. Mm-hmm. And that's a fairly expensive service because it's door-to-door and obviously it entails fewer people on a bus at any given time. So your cost per ride's higher than on a fixed route bus. So I think in the public, I think in the future, the Metro board will probably have some discussions with the public on how best to serve the senior disabled population with that Paracruz service, how to keep up with the demand in particular.
Yeah. So there's not really a particular like state or federal program that helps to pay for that then, is there?
No, you can pick up discretionary grants to help pay for the vehicles, but the operating costs really come and they're kind of in one big bucket. And so, your most efficient way to move people is with your fixed route system, and then your Paracruz becomes a complementary system to that fixed route for your senior disabled.
Great. So are there particular criteria for people who can use that system?
Yeah, I mean, in general, there's an eligibility process. So you apply to use Paracruise. It's a fairly easy application, but I think the test that happens in the application process is just your doctor and experts kind of weighing in on whether or not you can access the fixed route system. And if they determine that you cannot, then you become eligible for that Paracruise.
I see. Great. So you've got job openings right now. You said you're in need of, did you say 30 drivers?
20.
20 drivers.
20, yeah.
You're thankfully not 30 then. So you're short 20 of what you'd like to have in terms of the number of bus operators.
Yeah.
And how can you go forward in terms of trying to get that number of people in? And do you see progress being made on that front at this point?
We're gaining momentum. It has been a process because at the same time that you're hiring, you have retiring folks exiting the system. And, you have folks leaving for other employment opportunities. It's just a natural, occurrence in the workplace. So, it's been a kind of a slow start, but the momentum is there. And we're really just, we're working with Cabrillo College in their adult education. We're working with the EDD. We do lots of marketing, lots of targeted social media. And believe it or not, we have a sign-on bonus, which is very attractive to folks who want to get into that career. And, believe it or not, we just walk around, a lot of us, with business cards that give people information. A lot of underemployed folks who are looking for a better paying job that recognize Metro as a good paying job and a great place for benefits.
Great. I know you can purchase, for example, a card that has for riding Metro that you can add value to and refill when you run out.
Yep.
And those, I understand, you're still paying the standard fare, right? And then there's students at UCSC and at Cabrillo College who purchase passes that cover the school term, right? Is there anything like a monthly transit pass or something like that that's available to riders?
There is. You could purchase electronically a monthly pass. It becomes a flash pass with the driver from your smartphone. And, with the students, they pay a student fee that allows them to use their student body card basically as a flash pass on the Metro system. So, yeah, I think it's getting more and more convenient as we move along. I mean, we're really hopeful at some point to have a cashless fare system. If you ride Metro, you'll often see folks kind of fumbling around for some change here and there or trying to find some level of a flash pass. So we're really trying to find ways to speed up the boarding to then speed up the bus, obviously. So we're hoping for a cashless future.
Right. And I know the city of Santa Cruz was making passes available to people who work downtown.
That's correct.
And this is kind of a blanket thing. It didn't matter which business you worked for. You could have a pass for transit. Has that, have you seen a lot of use of that system?
I have. I ride the bus into downtown Santa Cruz, and then from there it's just a short walk to my employment place. But if you look around in the morning, my bus is usually about half full, and it's like, it's just like seeing my neighbors down the street as I'm walking on the bus system, right? That's typically what you'll see on the bus is just a variety of different folks, and a lot of them go into the downtown area, then get off and work in the downtown, or transfer and then head over to Capitola or other areas of the county. But I do see a lot of usage into the downtown.
Great. So could businesses around the county make arrangements to buy passes for employees? Is there some kind of system for that?
Absolutely. We can help them set up a pass program. We've got a lot of town home projects, apartments who look for passes for the occupants there at their developments. So we love to partner with the business and with housing projects on making Metro really convenient.
Great. Well, we just have about a minute and a half left, And so I wanted to invite you to tell listeners how they can find out more, and any last remarks you want to share with our audience.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to find out information about Metro is really the website. It's www.scmtd.com. You could call Metro customer service. It's 831-425-8600. Those are, I think, are key ways we are enhancing our social media. So look for us on Facebook. We also tweet out changes to the bus system. So if we're running behind on a particular route, usually we're tweeting about special events coming up. So social media is becoming more and more something we do at Metro. So, I think there's a lot of ways to reach out. We have board meetings where the public can come and talk to the board about needs or about concerns they might have. We meet monthly with the board, and you can always find out information on those board meetings on the website. And you can talk to your local public officials. Many of them are probably serving on the Metro board. So those are great ways to find out about Metro. If I just had to encapsulate my feelings on Metro, it's that I think the board and all of the employees at Metro, all 280 employees, we're really excited about building a better Metro moving into the future. As mentioned, we've got the 3 big goals, right? Reach 7 million rides within 5 years. It's to buy zero-emission buses to help the environment, so that you not only help the environment by riding, but also by zero-emission buses. And we've got 244 affordable housing units being planned on Metro property, which is fantastic for the county.
That's great. Well, Michael Tree, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Lon.